My beloved child, when heaven quietly signed its name onto the blessing for your life, that covenant was not left with any blank spaces. I went ahead of you, preparing every opportunity, every doorway, every person who would step into your life at exactly the right time. But until you dare to put your own pen to it with your own faith, everything that has been signed in heaven will remain resting on the shelves of the spiritual realm, while your heart still complains in the midst of lack. The moment you hear these words is not some random scrolling past for fun, but a very specific appointment I have written into the program of your life. I see clearly every stage you have walked through, every quiet tear on your pillow, every prayer you have not dared to share with anyone. Today, I am not adding one more piece of content just so you feel less sad. I am placing a spiritual milestone in your heart. I am knocking on the door once more, very personally, very intimately. If you still call all of this coincidence, you will unintentionally make light of the seriousness and spiritual weight of what I am stirring inside you. In heaven, the blessings prepared for you have already been appointed, already sealed. The issue is no longer on my side, but in the walls that are being built up in your heart. In the spiritual treasury I have entrusted to you, there are the resources you need, the right connections with the right people, the opportunities that come at the right time, new ideas, peace, support, and even miracles that can change the direction of your life. None of these are empty promises. They are things already prepared, waiting for a willing heart so they can pour down. And yet doubt, bitterness, discouragement, and the voice that says nothing will ever change quietly become thick walls that lock up what heaven has already opened. Today's message is at once my comfort, I have seen it all, and my warning, do not let the walls of your heart block the flow of blessing that I have signed my name to for you. Your faith is not a sudden rush of emotion when you listen to a message. It is your legal signature to receive what heaven has already signed for you. Faith is different from empty optimism. It is not just saying, I believe, to feel a bit better, but beginning to live as someone who has already received, even when your eyes have not seen any change yet. Your faith is revealed through your words. When you stop repeating the language of failure and begin to declare what I have spoken over your life through your actions. When you dare to make decisions, take steps, and choose in ways that align with what you believe through your attitude. When you shift from seeing yourself as a victim to seeing yourself as one who is sent. Every word of thanksgiving in a dark situation, every small act of obedience is another stroke in your spiritual signature. The issue is not that I have not acted, but that you have not truly signed that covenant with your own faith. And when you sign, heaven will begin to move in a way you did not expect. My child, this moment is not an accidental click, nor a random spare minute in your day. Before you opened this video, before these lines began to resound in your heart, I had already seen you for a very long time. I have seen every stretch of road you have walked, every bend where you stumbled, every silent space where you said nothing to anyone. And it is I myself who arranged for you in this message to meet today, not to entertain you, not for you to listen and then forget, but to awaken in you a truth: your life has never been accidental. You think you just happened to scroll into this, but I call it an appointment written long ago in my plan for your life. Before you ever knew what weariness felt like, I already knew. Before you sighed in frustration at the dead ends, I had already heard. Before you were bewildered and asked, I don't know where my life is going, I already had the answer. It is just that there are times when you are so busy with fear, with pressure, with the voices of this world that you cannot hear my call, which is sounding very softly within you. You must understand this. Not a single tear of yours falls without my seeing it, and not a single whispered prayer of yours goes by without my remembering it. There are nights when you think you are alone, but I am standing very near. There are seasons when you think you have been forgotten, but in reality I am quietly preparing a turning point that even you cannot yet imagine. If you look back over your life slowly, you will see there have been many times you escaped in a way that made no sense. Many times another door suddenly opened when you thought everything had slammed shut. That is not vague luck. That is my hand quietly guiding you. People often call that coincidence, but I call it intentional arrangement. I do not act on a whim with your life. I know what you were created to walk through, which marks you would carry, which lessons you would learn, and what kind of person you would become. Even the chapters you call wrong turns are not wasted to me. The wounds that once caused you to close your heart, the failures that once made you feel useless, all of these I am using to carve depth into your soul. What grieves me is not that you have stumbled, but that you begin to believe your life is nothing but random, meaningless, and passive. When you believe that, you unintentionally lower your own value and make light of my presence in every stage of your journey. You start drifting through your days like someone lost, instead of someone who is being led. And when you live in that posture, it becomes very hard for you to recognize the spiritual signals I am sending you continuously. Do you know, today, as you listen to these words, I am not only speaking to your ears, I am knocking directly on your spirit. This is not content for you to listen to just so you feel less empty and then go back to the same old void. This is a spiritual milestone where I am reminding you I have never taken my hand off your life. I am calling you to awaken from a passive faith, from a way of living that only believes in name, prays just to get it over with, and then keeps living according to fear. If today you still say, it's probably just random, you will miss the spiritual weight of this encounter. You will hear without truly listening, know without truly believing, and then keep returning to the old cycle, hoping, being disappointed, giving up. But if you dare to pause for a moment, dare to admit in your heart, maybe God really is speaking to me, then in that very moment, your faith will begin to be rekindled after all the months and years of being covered in dust. I do not appear by accident in the weakest seasons of your life. I also do not choose the times when you are at your strongest to call you. I often come right when you begin to doubt yourself, doubt the future, and even doubt my promises, because it is exactly then that you most need to be reminded you are not swimming alone through this life. You are being led, even when you cannot see the invisible cord that is holding you. Do you still remember the prayers you once spoke to me long ago? There are things you have forgotten, but I have not. There are dreams you have folded away, but I still keep them. There are longings you decided were too unrealistic, but I have never mocked them. I have not forgotten the things you once asked for with tears in the night. It is just that sometimes I must lead you along routes you do not like, so that your heart becomes large enough to contain what I have planned. You need to understand faith is not something you use only when the road is smooth. It is the light by which you walk through the dim stretches. And today, as you are listening this far, I am once again kindling that light in you, not by a burst of impulsive emotion, but by a deep certainty in your spirit. Your life is not aimless, not abandoned, and not driven by meaningless randomness. Many times you have asked, why do I pray so much and nothing changes? You do not realize that it is precisely those times of waiting that are training you to be strong enough not to break when the real blessing arrives. There are things which, if I gave them to you earlier, you would lose because you were not yet mature enough. There are doors which, if they open too quickly, you would walk through with pride instead of humility. So I am never late. You are simply being prepared. In this moment, I have not come to offer hollow promises. I have come to tell you the truth. You are in my process, whether you recognize it or not. And that process is not cold or mechanical. It is built out of love, out of patience, and out of a plan you cannot yet fully see. If you keep insisting on calling it coincidence, your heart will grow careless toward the holy things that are quietly taking place. Today, I ask you only one small thing. Do not treat this moment lightly. Do not swipe past it like you do with other content. Do not listen out of habit. Listen with your whole heart, because it may well be that in the very moment you think you are just watching for curiosity's sake, I am quietly resetting the compass of your life. I am turning you back toward the path you drifted from without even realizing it. If you have ever thought, my life is probably nothing special, then today I say to you, the very fact that you are still breathing, still listening, still longing for what is good, is already a sign that I have never let go of you. If you have ever thought you were not important, then the fact that I am taking this time to call you personally in this moment is the clearest answer. This is not coincidence. This is a spiritual appointment. An appointment so you will be reminded that you have never been alone, never been forgotten, and never been a faint, meaningless dot in the vast flow of life. You are part of a story that I am writing, and that story is far from over. And if today you dare to believe that this encounter has a purpose, then you have just stepped into the starting point of a new journey, where you stop living as someone without direction and begin to learn to live as someone who knows they are being led. My child, there are things I have already signed in heaven. They are not under consideration. They are not in doubt. They have been decided, sealed, and made ready. The blessings for your life are not some vague intention, but part of a clear plan that I set in place long before you even knew what it meant to worry. The issue today is no longer on my side. The issue lies in the invisible walls you are raising within your own heart. You often think that blessing is still far away, that I am still testing you, that perhaps you are not good enough, not worthy enough, not qualified enough to receive. But I tell you the truth in heaven. The spiritual storehouse prepared for you is already in place. In it is strength for you to take the next step when you feel completely drained. There are relationships that will lift you up at the very moment you think you are all alone. There are opportunities that will open when you are convinced every door is shut. There are new ideas that will light up when your mind is tired and empty. There is a peace the world cannot give and cannot take away. These things are not empty promises. They are not on my lips just to sound beautiful. They already exist in the treasury I have set apart for each of my children. Everything is waiting for the right time and for a heart that is ready. Yet there is a painful paradox I see in so many. The blessing is on the other side. But you are the one who keeps building walls on this side. The first wall you build is doubt. You doubt me. You doubt yourself. And you even doubt what is good. You say you believe, but deep inside you are always bracing yourself for a bad outcome. You pray, yet you expect, in your heart, it will probably be very hard anyway. Every word of doubt is like a brick you lay with your own hands, quietly rising higher without you noticing. And when those walls are thick enough, the flow of blessing from heaven cannot pass through. Not because I have stopped giving, but because you have locked your own heart. The second wall is bitterness. There are things that have happened that were not what you hoped for. There are prayers you have lifted up in tears, only to see the outcome go in a different direction. You do not say it out loud, but at times your heart whispers, maybe God is not listening to me anymore. Bitterness does not arrive with noise. It comes quietly, like a thin layer of dust slowly settling over the light of faith. And when bitterness stays too long, you begin to look at everything I do through a distorted lens. The third wall is discouragement and exhaustion. You are tired of waiting. You are weary of praying without seeing clear results. You are so tired that you no longer even have the strength to be disappointed. You only have enough strength left to settle for a life that is just okay enough to get by. In that state, You begin to speak familiar lines. Well, I guess my life will just be like this. Trying harder won't change anything. Why hope for anything? It only wears me out. Each such sentence not only weakens you, but also raises higher the invisible wall, standing between you and the blessing. You need to understand something very important. I am not the one building these walls. I have not locked the door to your blessings. I have not withdrawn what I have signed for you. My signature remains in place. It is just that every time you doubt, grow bitter, or sink into discouragement, you are the one adding another layer of lock upon your own heart. This message does not come to accuse you. I do not come to make you feel guilty. I come to both comfort you and awaken you. I comfort you because I want you to know that I have seen it all, every tear you have shed in silence, every sleepless night of worry, every question you have hidden away, afraid to ask anyone. You are not suffering unseen. I have never turned my back on you, and I awaken you because if you keep building these walls, it is you who will end up imprisoned inside, not the blessing locked out. There is a truth you need to face many times. You are not lacking in blessing. You are only lacking a heart open enough to receive. You are not lacking opportunities. You are only lacking the faith to step out of your comfort zone. You are not lacking support from heaven. You are only lacking a heart soft enough to let that stream of blessing flow in. You say that you have prayed a lot. I know. But have you allowed me to touch the deepest fears inside you? Have you allowed me to heal the wounds you keep trying to hide? Or have you only been asking me to change the circumstances on the outside, while inside you still keep your defenses tightly raised for fear of being hurt again? There are people who are very fervent when asking, yet extremely hesitant when it comes to trusting. They want to receive blessing but are afraid to hope. They want their lives to change but are afraid of being disappointed one more time. And that very fear becomes the greatest wall of all. My child, blessing is not something I throw to you from afar for you to struggle to catch. Blessing is a flow, and a flow needs an open channel. When your heart is closed, no matter how much I pour out, you will not be able to perceive it. It is not because I am stingy, but because your heart has become too cramped to hold anything new. If today you still think, surely God has not done anything for me, then I gently ask you this: are you sure you have cleared enough space in your heart for me to work, or are you still clinging tightly to old assumptions, old failures, old fears, and then using all of that to measure what I am about to do? I do not come to break your blessings. I come to break down the walls in your heart, not by force, but by truth. The truth is that you are still being loved, still being remembered, still being prepared for good things that far exceed what you dare to ask or imagine. If today you allow yourself to soften a little, to let go a little, to believe again, even just a little, those walls will begin to crack, and when even the smallest crack appears, the light of heaven is already enough to slip through. I do not need you to be perfectly strong. I only need you to open your heart sincerely. You do not need to understand my entire plan. You only need to stop locking your heart with fear and weariness. Remember this: in heaven, I have already signed. On earth, it only remains for you to lower the walls. When the walls come down, the flow of blessing will no longer have to search for a detour. It will run straight into the place I have prepared for it, your very heart. My child, many people think faith is only a feeling that rises in a certain moment when they hear a sermon that moves them, when they stand in the midst of a worshiping crowd, when tears suddenly fall from emotion. But I tell you, true faith does not lie in passing feelings. It lies in the deep agreement between your heart and the word I have spoken. Faith is not a mere sense of, I believe, to ease your mind. It is the act of signing your name to what heaven has already prepared for you. In heaven, I have signed first. I have sealed the good things for your life. But on earth, That covenant only begins to operate when you also put your pen to it with your very life. And that signature is called faith. You need to understand a very important difference. Faith is not the same as optimism. Optimism is when you soothe yourself by saying, "It will all be okay somehow." Faith is when you dare to stand firm on my word even when there is not yet a single visible sign that change is taking place. Optimism rests on feelings. Faith rests on truth. Optimism rises and falls with circumstances. Faith stands firm even when circumstances have not yet changed. Many times you say, "I believe in God," but your life still runs according to fear. You pray for provision, yet the way you live is driven by anxiety about lack. You ask me to open a way, yet whenever an opportunity comes, you shrink back for fear of risk. It is not that you do not believe in me, it is that you have not yet dared to sign fully onto what you say you believe. Faith is not measured only by the words you say in the moment of prayer, but by the way you live when you walk away from that place of prayer. Faith is not expressed through memorized phrases, but through very ordinary choices, whether you choose to believe or to doubt, to step out or to stay put, to obey or to delay. And your signature of faith is not a single stroke of the pen. It is a process being written day by day through 3 very clear levels. The first level is your words. The words you speak each day are sowing a spiritual seed into your own life. When you continually confess failure, belittle yourself, and say that you are useless, inferior, and have no future, you are signing a contract very different from the one I have signed for you. I have called you my beloved child, my chosen one, a person of worth, but if your mouth only repeats the language of fear and hurt, then your signature is contradicting mine. Faith begins when you dare to correct what you say, not to trick yourself, but to come into agreement with what I have spoken. You may not yet see yourself as strong, but you choose to say, "I am being transformed by him." You may not yet see the path clearly, but you choose to say, "He will lead me step by step." Every word you speak in faith is a fresh stroke of ink on that covenant between heaven and earth. The second level is action. Faith does not stop at the lips. If you only speak but do not dare to step out, that is not yet a complete signature. Your actions reveal how deeply you truly believe. Are you willing to make decisions that align with what you have been asking for? You ask for growth. But are you willing to learn, to change, to be trained? You ask me to make your life new. But are you willing to cut off the relationships, habits, and lifestyles that are pulling you backward? Every step of obedience, however small, leaves a very great imprint in the spiritual realm. Some steps may look very ordinary on the outside, but in heaven they resound as a very clear yes from you. And when you walk in this way, you are saying to me, "I believe not only with my words, but with my choices." It is precisely these steps that cause what I have already signed to begin to take effect in the reality of your life. The third level is attitude. There is another thing that is very important. Your faith is expressed most clearly in the way you look at your circumstances. When difficulties come, do you see yourself as a victim or as someone being trained? When you are rejected, do you see yourself as a loser or as someone being redirected when you have not yet seen results? Do you nourish an attitude of bitterness or an attitude of trust? I am not afraid of your weakness. I only fear that you allow a negative attitude to take root in your heart for too long. Because attitude is the environment in which faith either grows or withers. A heart that is always complaining will find it hard to recognize a miracle. A mind that is always pessimistic will find it very difficult to hear my voice when I am making a way. Every time you choose to give thanks while your circumstances are still unclear, you are adding a strong stroke to the covenant you are signing. Every time you choose hope instead of giving up, you are saying, I trust the Father's word more than I trust what I see. And it is precisely these quiet choices that keep your faith from remaining a theory and turn it into a living power. My child, many people complain, "Why hasn't the Lord done anything for me?" But I see very clearly that I have already acted. It is only that you have not finished signing your part. I do not force your signature. I honor you enough to wait for true agreement from your side, because I do not want to bless you as a passive recipient. But I want you to step in with the posture of a co-laborer with me. At times you think you need to have great faith before you dare to step out. But in reality, you only need to dare to take one small step in faith. And great faith will be birthed out of that very small step. No one has strong faith who has not once trembled in their first steps. No one dares sign a great signature who has never practiced with small strokes. Do not wait until you feel completely certain before you sign. If you wait like that, you may end up waiting a very long time. Faith is not when you feel you have enough, it is when you dare to believe while you are still lacking. Faith is not when all fear is gone, it is when you keep walking even while you are still afraid. And now, I tell you this truth, my part has been completed, your part is still waiting to be completed by faith. I am not slow. I am patiently standing and waiting for your signature, not to pressure you, but so that you may step in with the posture of one who freely chooses. When you sign, you not only receive what I have prepared, you also step out of your old image of yourself. You stop seeing yourself as someone who only knows how to beg, and you begin to see yourself as one who has been entrusted. You no longer live as someone who only watches the miracles of others, but you begin to become the main character in your own story of faith. And when that signature is placed down, even with a trembling stroke, even with much fear still inside, then, in the spiritual realm, a door has officially been opened. Things that had been lying still begin to move. Things you thought had fallen asleep begin to be awakened. Not noisy, not showy, but very real. The issue has never been that I have not acted. The issue is this: have you truly been willing to sign with your own faith? Yet, my child, when you put down the stroke of faith, even while still trembling, even before you feel fully confident, a very real shift has already begun in the unseen realm. Heaven does not stand still when you agree. Heaven does not remain silent when you obey. The very moment your heart says, "I believe," the whole spiritual system that your natural eyes cannot see is set in motion. Things that once stood still begin to move. Doors that seemed immovable begin to tremble slightly. Not noisy, not showy, but utterly precise and ordered. Angels are sent not to do vague things, but to carry out very specific assignments concerning your life. There are angels who go ahead of you to clear the way, removing obstacles your eyes cannot see, things which, if you had to face them head on, would exhaust you and make you lose heart. There are angels sent to soften hearts that once rejected you, turned their backs on you, or wounded you, placing upon you a strange favor so that even you do not understand why people begin to treat you with such kindness. There are angels entrusted with sowing into your mind ideas, strategies, and directions that your natural intellect could never have produced, so that you may step into things far beyond your former capacity. And then, in your everyday life, you begin to see what you call coincidences appearing more and more. An unexpected message arrives just when you are stuck. A puzzling invitation opens a path you had never considered. Someone returns after a long absence, bringing with them an opportunity you thought was gone forever. A decision that seemed small ends up pulling along a whole chain of great changes behind it. You call these things random, but I know they are signs that heaven is quietly moving on your behalf. You need to understand that when faith is at work, I am not only moving in heaven, I am also rearranging things on earth. People, circumstances, timing, environments, all are being set back into their proper places in the picture I am painting for your life. There are people who are moved out of your life, not to make you lose, but so that you will no longer be held by old entanglements. There are new people brought in, not to overwhelm you, but to lift you to a new level of awareness and calling. There are doors that close, not because I am rejecting you, but because you have outgrown those doors. Many times you complain, "Why is everything so slow?" You do not realize that much of what you call delay is actually a process of preparation. I prepare circumstances. I prepare people. And most importantly, I prepare you. If you receive too early, you will waste the blessing in shallowness. If you receive too quickly, you will drop what I give because you do not yet have the depth to hold it. So when the appointed time comes, things will not explode in chaos. They will move gently but very surely, without deviation, without mistake, without being a second late. There is something I especially want to warn you about. If you look at everything only with natural eyes, you will easily treat these spiritual signals as ordinary. You will say, "Oh, that was just luck." You will think, "It was probably just coincidence." And then you will go on complaining, "God still hasn't done anything for me." It is not that I am not working. It is that you have become accustomed to looking at miracles through the lens of familiarity. When you become too used to grace, you will unintentionally despise that very grace without realizing it. In reality, there are miracles that do not come in the loud form you once expected. There are deliverances that do not unfold in the dramatic way you once imagined. There are answers that do not appear as a sudden flash of lightning, but as a series of very ordinary, very small details that are easy to overlook. Yet, those very small things, when placed together, will form a very great turning point in your life. My child, when your faith begins to operate, you will not only see your circumstances change, you yourself are being changed from the inside. You begin to become more sensitive to my voice. You begin to notice things you once overlooked. You begin to understand that some answers do not come in the form of gain or loss, but in the form of being shaped, being prepared, being elevated. And when you look back, you will be startled to realize that I have led you very far from the day you dared to sign in faith. At times you will wonder, why do some people enter my life so quickly and then leave just as quickly? You do not realize that some people are only assigned to walk with you for a short stretch to hand you a lesson, a missing piece, a spiritual touch, and then they must go so that you will not become dependent on them but learn to walk with me. There are also others who seem very ordinary, yet they become key factors in a major transition in your life at the right time, in the right place, in the right role. When faith is at work, you are no longer alone in your decisions. You no longer make choices based merely on fear and the need for safety. You begin to be led by peace, a peace that does not come from everything already being stable, but from knowing with certainty that you are in my hands, even while many outward things are still not entirely clear. And I tell you this truth, once you have signed in faith, heaven will never again stand outside your life. Heaven intervenes. Heaven orchestrates. Heaven arranges. There are turns in the road which, seen with human eyes, look like mistakes, but seen with spiritual eyes are loving redirections. There are slowings that feel like losing momentum, but in reality, they keep you from arriving too early at places for which you are not yet ready. So if today you are beginning to see strange movements in your life, changes that are hard to name, new connections, new opportunities, new challenges you have never faced before, do not be quick to be afraid. Very likely these are signs that your signature of faith has reached heaven, and heaven is beginning to respond with very real movements in your life. My child, when heaven has signed, when I have sealed the blessing appointed for your life. The next step is not for you to keep sitting there, waiting for spiritual handouts like a beggar. I have not called you to live in the mindset of hoping to be given a little, but to walk as a rightful heir, knowing that you have a share in your Father's inheritance. I want you to change your posture of living from someone who only knows how to wait to be given, to someone who is clearly aware, I have been entrusted with this, and I am responsible to steward it. A beggar is always saying, please give me a little, whatever you can spare. Just don't abandon me. But an heir is different. An heir is not arrogant, yet clearly knows their position. An heir does not come with the trembling of inferiority, but with reverent fear and gratitude. Father, I thank you for all you have prepared. Please teach me how to steward and use it according to your will. It does not please me when you insist on putting yourself beneath what I have already spoken over you. True humility is not humiliating yourself, but accepting exactly what I say about you, no more and no less. Therefore, first of all, I want to correct the way you pray. Do not pray like someone begging for scraps, Lord. If possible, could you give me just a little of this, a little of that, as though I were hard to please and would only open my hand if you begged enough. I am your Father. A loving father does not always give his child everything the child wants, but his heart is always ready to give what is good at the right time. I want to hear your voice. I want you to open your heart to me, but I do not want you to remain forever in the posture of fear of being rejected. Come to me as a child in the house. You may still tremble out of reverence, but you do not doubt my love. Learn to pray like someone who knows they have a share in their Father's inheritance. Father, I know you have prepared my portion of blessing. Please open my eyes to see it. Open my heart to receive it, and correct me so that I may be worthy to steward it. That is the prayer of an heir, not of a beggar. Next, I want you to speak as one who has received. Your mouth has long been accustomed to phrases like, I am nothing. I can't do it. My life is probably over. This is all there is. Those words may sound humble, but in truth, they deny the work I am doing in you. An heir does not exalt themselves, but neither do they trample themselves down. Do not go on calling yourself a victim, one who is forgotten, someone who is always last to arrive. I have called you, my son, my daughter, so why do you keep calling yourself by the labels that fear and wounds have stuck onto you? From today, I want you to begin changing the language you use. When you speak about yourself, speak with this awareness: I am being shaped by His hand. My life is in the Father's hands. I am learning to live as one who is sent, not as a wanderer without direction. These sentences are not slogans. They are the way you sign with your words beneath what I have already spoken over you. But words alone are not enough. An heir does not live in a passive comfort zone. I want you to live as one who has received, which means beginning to make decisions, choices, and steps with the awareness that you are managing what I have entrusted to you, not just renting this life for a while. If you believe that I am opening a new path for you, then start preparing, learning, disciplining your lifestyle, and adjusting the way you use your time. If you believe I am calling you into a new environment, then begin taking small steps. Register, ask questions, try, connect. Do not wait for everything to be perfect before you act, because true faith often begins with very small, but very real steps. An heir lives with the awareness: every day of my life is not meaningless, but part of the mission the Father has given me. Therefore, you no longer make decisions just to get through the day, but to move closer to what I have spoken. You will begin to ask yourself, does this choice bring me closer to the Father's will? Does this relationship help me live true to my calling? Does this habit weaken me or strengthen me in my spiritual life? When you live that way, you are acting as a steward of an inheritance, not as a passerby taking temporary shelter. I also want you to act publicly as a spiritual sign. Do not let your faith remain only something like, "As long as I know it in my heart before God, that's enough." There are public actions I want you to take, not to show off, but to set a spiritual milestone for yourself and for those around you. It might be a confession of faith you dare to speak out, instead of keeping silent out of fear of being judged. It might be a comment or a share of a spiritual message you believe, even though you know some will not understand. It might be the fact that you dare to step forward to apologize, to forgive, to start again, to sign up for a new act of service, to publicly step into a journey that until now you only dared to entertain in your heart. These actions may look very small from the outside, but in heaven's eyes, no action that springs from faith is ever small. Every nod of obedience, every step you dare to take that breaks the old cycle, every time you dare to say "I believe" and live differently because of that, each one is a bold stroke in the signature you place beneath the covenant when heaven has signed. People may not understand. They may judge. They may despise. But in heaven, each of those actions is recorded as your way of saying to me, "I agree with what you have spoken. I do not only listen, I take part." Yet I must also warn you of a very real danger if you remain forever in the position of one who is waiting. You will miss the role of one who inherits. If you stop at watching, listening, being moved, and then letting everything pass by, your faith will gradually become an emotional habit instead of a power that transforms your life. You will easily slip into a way of living where, year after year, you hear very powerful words, yet your actual life does not change. You will turn your faith into a kind of spiritual painkiller, instead of allowing it to become the driving force that leads you into a new life. I did not create you to live as someone who follows religion just to belong, but to become someone who truly carries blessing, light, and hope to others. But to do that, you must first accept that you are an heir, that you are entrusted. You must dare to step out of the mindset, "I'm afraid people will think I'm a hypocrite. I'm afraid they'll say I'm putting on a show. I'm afraid old acquaintances will judge me for changing." The fear of being misunderstood can keep you in a safe shell, but it will also lock you inside the invisible cage of spiritual orphanhood. My child, if you keep being shy, withdrawing, and fearing the eyes of others, you will unintentionally live as though you had no father. Even though I have clearly called you, you are my son, my daughter. A spiritual orphan is always trying to manage alone, to hold everything up alone, to hide alone, to protect their image alone. An heir learns to lean, to walk, to act still trembling at times, yet with a deep inner knowing I am not alone. My Father takes responsibility for this journey with me. Today, I invite you to stand up. Do not live as a beggar at the door of your Father's house anymore. Do not remain outside just listening to the sound of the feast. When you have a seat at the table, do not ask only for a few crumbs of peace, a few fragments of hope, a few tiny rays of light. When I have prepared for you a rich inheritance in Christ, step in, receive, steward, live, and share. Sign not only with words, but with your concrete choices each day. And as you begin to live as an heir, speaking as one who has received, praying as one who has received, choosing as one who has received, acting as one who has received, you will discover something. Heaven will no longer be a distant thing somewhere above your head. Heaven will begin to resound in every decision, every relationship, every opportunity, every season of your life. The covenant, when heaven has signed but you have not, will be completed. because now you have signed it with your own faith and concrete actions. And that is when you will not only hear about blessing, but truly step into and live in the blessing I have prepared for you from the beginning. My child, you were not born to scramble for scraps of blessing like someone constantly afraid of being left out. What belongs to you in my plan is not some leftover promotion on the margins, something you have to fight, compete, and strain to prove yourself worthy to receive. I have carefully written your name into the portion of inheritance reserved for you in my house. Therefore, you do not need to live in a state of constant strain, counting every little bit, afraid of losing out, afraid of arriving too late. What I want from you is not anxious striving, but learning how to be still before me, to trust my heart, and to keep your own heart soft and open, so that what I have prepared has space to be poured out. When you stand in that posture, blessing is no longer something you have to seize, but something you know how to receive. There are many things I am holding in store for you in a realm your eyes have not yet touched. From your perspective, it may seem as though nothing is changing, but from mine, these spiritual things have already been prepared, like seeds lying beneath the soil, waiting to break through when the conditions are right. Your faith is the doorway, the drop of rain, the sunlight that awakens those seeds. When you choose to believe, when you allow your heart to open instead of building walls of suspicion and doubt, you are allowing what is still hidden to step into the light, to move from the unseen into the realm where you can sense, see, and touch it. I am not asking you to understand everything. I am inviting you to widen your heart, to shrink back less because you fear disappointment, to be less closed because you have been hurt, so that I have a path by which to work. I know there are many questions in your heart. Old collisions have taught you to protect yourself by raising walls, the wall of reason, the wall of experience, the wall of indifference. You say, if I expect little, it will hurt less. If I do not hope or wait for anything, then whatever comes will not make me fall. But my child, in closing your heart to pain, you have also unintentionally closed the channel through which I long to pour life, healing, and renewal into you. I do not come to take anything more from you. I come to restore what you have lost by staying in defense for too long. But if you keep wearing your old darkness as armor, the new light will struggle to find a way in. Today I am gently touching that fence and telling you, you can open it now, not flinging it wide all at once, but little by little. Open it with an honest sigh poured out to me instead of swallowing it back down. Open it with a simple prayer, Father, I want to believe again. Open it with a small decision to no longer belittle yourself, to no longer speak words that extinguish your own hope. Every such small movement in your heart I see. To you it may feel like only a passing tremor, but in the spiritual realm, that is the moment when the door begins to crack open and fresh air finds room to rush in. You cannot imagine how even a small change in your heart is enough to shift the spiritual atmosphere around you. When you listen with reverence instead of just listening to get it over with, the atmosphere in your room, in your house, in the very place where you stand begins to change. When you receive each word with gentleness instead of closing yourself off, heavy and tight, peace begins to spread, even if nothing on the outside seems different yet. I am walking slowly around your life like a skilled craftsman, adjusting each detail, loosening what is too tight, tightening what is too loose, straightening what has been bent by the blows of the years. All of this movement begins on the inside and then spreads outward. While you think it is only you and this screen, I am quietly working behind the scenes of your life. I am moving people into their right places. In your story, some must step out so that you are less dragged back into the past. And some I am bringing in to walk with you on this new stretch of the road. I am rearranging the opportunities you thought had slipped away, bringing them back in a season when you have grown enough to seize them. I am stirring the hearts of those you are about to meet, so that when you appear, the doors of their hearts will no longer be shut as before, and I am also leading you toward new doorways you have never considered, places where your old fears once kept you from daring to step in. You will begin to see things that seem random appear more and more often, an unexpected phone call coming at the exact moment you need a word of confirmation, an invitation that leaves you hesitant, yet aligns so closely with what you have been secretly praying for, an unplanned encounter that opens up an entirely new direction. You may still be used to calling these things coincidence, but I want to teach you a new language. Call them loving arrangements. For those who place their trust in me, no moment is wasted and no detail is truly meaningless. As you open your heart, you will gradually learn to distinguish what is merely outer noise from what is a sign that I am gently drawing you in another direction. Sometimes, my shifting is not only about bringing good things in, but also gently taking away what no longer fits. A job you have clung to so tightly suddenly feels cramped. A relationship you have held on to at all costs suddenly reveals limits you have long tried to ignore. You feel confused and you ask me, why is everything getting messy when I am trying to believe? But you do not realize that it is precisely because you have begun to believe that I now have a way to intervene more deeply. I am not making your life chaotic. I am only stirring up what was already tangled so that you will no longer keep deceiving yourself. Because I want you to step into a wider space. I cannot let you stay forever curled up inside the small familiar room. When I rearrange the opportunities around you, I do not do it on a whim. I weigh carefully the timing, your capacity to endure, your emotional state, and even the deepest dreams within you that you yourself have forgotten. Some doors will not open the first time you knock, not because I do not hear you, but because I know that if they open now, you would enter with the wrong posture. I could give you what you ask for, but I love you enough to delay, to wait for you to mature a little more, so that when you step in with gratitude and responsibility rather than with a mindset of conquering and then abandoning. I am also touching hearts, the hearts of those you think are hard as stone. Some hearts that once said no to you will quietly be softened by me. This is not so that you may be exalted, but so that my plan for you may continue. At times you yourself will be surprised to see someone suddenly treat you differently. Less harsh, less demanding, less cold. Before you rush to feel proud or confused, I want you to know this: it is not simply that they have changed their personality, but that I am gently knocking on their hearts, just as I have knocked on yours. And above all, I am opening doors, not only doors of work, finances, and relationships, but first of all the doors within you, the door of recognizing your own worth, the door of reconciliation with your past, the door of courage to face what you once avoided. When the inner doors are opened, the outer doors will no longer overwhelm or frighten you. You will cross their thresholds with a steadier step, because you know you are no longer a child chasing after every new thing, but an heir walking toward what has been promised to you. So, I beg you, do not hastily rebuild the wall I am gently trying to take down. When something wounds you, do not rush to conclude. You see, believing is pointless. Instead, bring both that pain and that question to me so that they will not become bricks for yet another layer of wall. When you feel tired and ready to drop everything, do not retreat into silence. Tell me honestly, I'm tired, but I do not want my heart to grow hard. Please keep my heart soft. Even a whisper like that is enough to keep the flow from being completely blocked. You do not have to fight with your brothers and sisters, nor compete with anyone in my house. Each person has their own portion, their own timing, their own journey. Comparison only exhausts you and makes you doubt me more. Instead of asking, Why do they receive and I do not yet learn to ask? In this season, Father, what are you teaching me? What are you arranging for me that I have not yet seen? When you change your question, your heart will be less bitter and will open for my wisdom to flow in. Today, if you can hear my voice glimmering somewhere between these lines, pause for a moment and take a deep breath. Let that breath remind you that you are still living in my presence. Before you look for more answers, let your heart say one simple sentence: I do not understand everything, but I want to believe that Father is working on my behalf. To others that may sound weak, but to me it is a beautiful response. It gives me room to keep arranging, keep shifting, keep opening doors without being stopped by the wall of your doubt. My child, I am not in a hurry. I am not rushing your life. I walk at your pace, but I will not stop. When you listen, I will keep speaking. When you open your heart, I will keep giving. When you agree to step forward, I will keep leading. And day by day, you will realize that what you once thought was random has in fact been the steps I quietly traced in advance on the path you are walking. My child, what is beginning to stir in your life today is not a sudden moment, but the activation of things I have cherished for you for a very long time, long before you ever cried your first cry. When you were not yet aware of yourself, when you were still only an idea in the Father's heart, I had already thought of you, sketched out your life in my purpose, and placed within you very unique lines, abilities that even you sometimes do not understand why you possess, and deep desires you have often assumed were too different. I did not casually pick a few pleasant things and toss them into your life just for the sake of it. I have carefully tended every detail, preserved every element, arranged every piece, waiting for the day when your heart would be soft enough, open enough, deep enough not only to grasp but also to keep what I give. Today I am no longer speaking to you only with vague promises, but with a clear affirmation. What I have prepared for you is stepping out of the realm of waiting into the realm of fulfillment. What I have for you has never been confined within the boundaries of money, titles, or the things people easily see and hastily label as success. I know you need those things to some degree in order to live, to care for your family, to stand firm in this life. But the blessing I have planned for you does not stop at having enough to eat, enough to wear, enough to spend. I care far more about the inner part of you, the place where fears hide, where loneliness lies still, where desires both burn and fear being extinguished. In the storehouse I have set aside for you there is a kind of peace, wholly different from the fragile calm you have tried to create by avoiding problems or talking yourself into feeling better. It is a stability that sinks to the very bottom of your soul and keeps you from being swept away whenever circumstances rage. I have prepared for you a peace that frees you from having to measure yourself against others, from being strangled by imposed standards, from having to strain endlessly to prove your worth. The peace I want to pour into you is not a few fleeting minutes of comfort that soon disappear, but a foundation from which you learn to live, to love, to decide, and to walk in freedom. Not only that, I have also kept for you a store of wisdom reserved for the crossroads where you do not know which way to choose. You have stood at the intersections of your life, looking in every direction and feeling anxious, afraid of choosing wrongly and having to pay the price, afraid that one unwise decision will bring consequences you cannot bear. There have been times you blamed yourself for choices in the past, times you swore you would never let yourself fall into such a situation again, and then that very fear tied your hands in front of new opportunities. I see that inner struggle, and I am not leaving you trapped in that cycle forever. I am ready to give you clarity from above, a gentle yet distinct light, enough for you to see the next step, even when the rest of the road ahead is still hazy. The wisdom I have for you is not just knowledge in your mind, but also sensitivity in your heart. so that you both recognize what is right and have the courage to do what is right, even when the right thing is not the most comfortable choice. I know there have been seasons when you lived like someone utterly drained of strength. On the outside, you still managed, still smiled, still fulfilled what had to be done. But inside, you were like a vessel that has not been refilled for a long time. With only a few last drops clinging to the bottom, you lay down, yet your mind kept spinning. You woke up, yet your heart felt just as heavy as before. You did what you had to do, but found no joy in it. Even small successes could not satisfy you. And everything felt like a meaningless cycle. I did not turn my face away from those days. In my storehouse for you, there is a gift called rest, not an escape from everything, not a surrender to anything, but the grace to lay your burdens down in the right place. I have prepared for you pauses along the way, places where you can breathe deeply, honestly admit that you are tired, and allow me to carry the part you no longer have strength to bear. I want to teach you a way of life that is not about pushing yourself to exhaustion, but about a rhythm of stopping and going, of battling and resting, of giving and receiving. That too is a blessing many people fail to recognize because they are busy chasing after things that are easy to display on the outside. As for the future, how many times have you looked at it as a foggy veil, hoping yet hesitant, longing yet afraid? You sketch countless scenarios in your mind. You make plans, then erase them. You dream and then call yourself naive. I do not blame you for that. I understand you. Yet while you are struggling over your plans, I have been painting for you a picture that is much larger, not so that you can grasp every detail, for knowing everything would overwhelm you and rob you of freedom, but so that you might have a clear direction. I have placed in your heart an image of a meaningful life, where you do not live only for yourself, but become a channel of blessing to others. Those longings in you to do something different, to not waste your life, are not random. They are seeds I have sown, little by little, waiting for the soil of your heart to become soft enough for them to rise. I have also already woven into my design the people who will play key roles on your journey. There are those I will use to pull you out of your old comfort zones, those who will help you rediscover the value you had forgotten, those who will hold up a mirror so you can see the shadowed corners that need tending, and those who simply stand beside you to embrace you when you feel utterly alone. There will also be hearts that once closed themselves to you, that misunderstood you, that wounded you. But when my appointed time comes, they will change the way they see you. And in the very places where you were once rejected, you will experience a new welcome. Every encounter, in my hands, carries meaning. Even the farewells you thought were only loss. I have already woven a network of relationships around you, not so that you cling to people, but so that you may recognize this when I open a new season. No one and nothing can shut it. Through all these years, I have quietly gathered every experience, every ability, every wound and every victory of yours to become the capital for your next stretch of road. The jobs that seemed unrelated, the attempts you started and then abandoned, the failures that made you ashamed, the small successes that left you confused about whether to rejoice or to fear. None of these are fragmented in my sight. I see how each of them is shaping you into a deeper, truer, more resilient version of yourself. No step is meaningless if it has been placed into my hands. Many things you thought were backward steps have in fact been helping your roots go down deeper, so that when I lift you up, you will not be easily shaken just because the winds of life blow hard. You may ask, if you have prepared so much, why am I only beginning to sense it now, my child? Blessing is not only about my readiness to give, but also about how ready you are to receive. Your heart is like a vessel. If it is still full of resentment, full of comparisons, full of confusion, full of the craving to prove yourself. Then even if I pour out my blessing, it will easily spill over or become distorted. That is why I have patiently waited for you to grow from the inside. Waited for you to realize that some things cannot be solved by reason or human strength alone. Waited for you to learn how to return to me, not only in desperation but also in the ordinary days. I have waited for those moments when you bow your head and say, I am not enough. But Father, you are enough. I do not understand everything, but I choose to trust. Those whispered words of yours are the signs that tell me the vessel has begun to empty, to be ready. Today I see that within you there is no longer the same raging storm as before. Your worries are still there, but they no longer rule you as strongly as they once did. Your wounds are still there, but they no longer make you push me away as they used to. Your questions are still there, but now you know how to bring them to me rather than hiding them inside. That change, whether you realize it or not, is a great step of spiritual maturity. It shows me that you have entered a different season, a different state of heart, not perfect, but far more ready than before. And when your heart changes season, the treasure I have kept for you also begins to be opened. Picture this, all this time, at the headwaters of your life, I have been quietly storing up water. I have not allowed it to burst the banks and sweep everything away. Instead, I have built embankments, carved channels, adjusted the course. Now, it is time for the gates of that dam to be slowly lifted. The waters do not rush out so wildly as to overwhelm you, but they are strong enough to refresh the dry places in your life. Doors of opportunity you thought were closed forever begin to open a thin line of light. Ideas you thought had died return to your mind with new vitality. Conversations you once dismissed as insignificant suddenly open paths you had never imagined. A series of coincidences begins to appear, and if you look closely, you will see them aligning into a very intentional pattern. The blessing I have prepared for you is no longer sitting quietly on the shelf. It has been unsealed. I have released it to set out on its way. You may not see all its effects in a day or two, but like a train that has left the station, it is moving steadily toward you, and no one can stop it if you keep walking in faith and obedience. Some things will come quickly and some slowly. Some you will recognize at once, and some will arrive in such a way that only later, looking back, you will exclaim, "So that too was part of the blessing the Lord had prepared for me." I want you to take hold of this truth with a calm, mature heart, not with a restless attitude that demands a dazzling miracle and then collapses in disappointment when things do not unfold according to your wishes. I am not calling you into a new season so that you chase after feelings and then crash, but so that you may walk each step more firmly, more deeply, more intentionally in your relationship with me. When you understand that what is opening before you is the result of a love that has been preparing for a very long time, you will no longer need to compare your portion with that of others, no longer cling frantically to anything for fear of losing it, no longer be thrown into confusion when something is temporarily closed. You will learn to ask, in this, "Father, what are you doing in this situation? Where is the hidden blessing? How do I need to grow in order to move forward?" And in this way, you will no longer be someone who merely sits waiting for blessing to arrive, but become one who walks with the blessing throughout its journey to you and through you. You will see yourself change from only asking. You begin to cooperate from only wanting to receive. You begin to share from thinking only of yourself. You begin to see the many others who need to be touched by the very things you have received. That is when the treasure I have prepared for you is fulfilled in its fullness, not only filling the vessel called your life, but overflowing into streams of refreshing water for the parched souls around you. And then you will understand more deeply than ever that everything I have prepared for you from the beginning was never meant only for you, but so that through you many more may taste the kindness of the Father. Listen very deeply to what I am about to say, for it is not only a word of encouragement, but a commissioning. You are not a spectator standing at a distance, nor someone waiting out on the porch hoping to hear your name called. In my eyes, you are already in the family, inside the house, with a place at the table. What I have prepared, what I have appointed, what I have stored up in my spiritual treasury is not for show, nor reserved for someone more deserving, but is precisely the portion meant for you. I did not make a mistake when I wrote your name into that plan, and I have not knocked on the wrong door as I come again and again to your heart. You may doubt yourself, but I have never hesitated in choosing you to walk this journey. Therefore, I invite you to step out of the way of living that is always in waiting mode. Do not see yourself as the one standing at the end of the line, merely hoping that when it is finally your turn, there might still be something left over for you. I do not want you to live with the mindset of constantly waiting for your turn. I want you to begin to see yourself differently as someone who has already been given a portion, already been called by name, already had a responsibility and a privilege placed into your hands. When you keep thinking, "It probably isn't my time yet," you are the one holding your own feet back. Even though I have already opened the road in front of you, begin to think, choose, pray and work as someone who is standing inside the promise, not someone standing outside wondering whether they will ever be allowed in. I want to correct the way you speak about yourself and about me. Do not let your mouth constantly utter words of lack, of fear, of unworthiness, every time you call yourself small in a way that despises your own life. Every time you speak about the future with a disappointed tone, you are telling a story that contradicts the story I am writing. I am not asking you to ignore your limitations, but I want you to see those limitations in the light of my grace. A steward of the master's estate does not boast of being rich, but neither do they say they are empty-handed. They know the wealth is not theirs, yet they have the right to use it and to care for it. So it is with you. Everything I have entrusted to you, your gifts, your opportunities, your experiences, your wounds that have been healed, the lessons you have paid for with tears, is the capital I want you to use to bear fruit for my kingdom. Do not keep going as if you had been left behind, abandoned, with no one to stand behind you. I did not send you into life by throwing you like a child into a crowded marketplace and telling you to fend for yourself. When you step out of bed each morning, I am there before you. When you wrestle with the pressures of work, family, finances, and relationships, I am still standing with you in that cramped room. I am not merely observing, I am involved. Yet what I am waiting for is that you dare to believe you no longer have to strain under the load like someone who has no one to uphold them. Learn to walk as a child who knows their father is present, even when you do not always feel it. My presence does not depend on the fleeting emotions of your heart, but on the covenant I have made. I am the one who does not withdraw what I have promised. I am not like the hasty promises of people, spoken to sound good and then forgotten. Nor do I operate according to the clock of human emotion, generous when happy and tightened when sad. My heart is steadier than your feelings, and my plans are more enduring than the dizzying changes of your circumstances. There are times you think I am slow, but if you could see the whole picture, you would know that I am keeping time exactly at the right hour, with the right people, in the right place. I do not arrive early in a hurried, frantic way, nor do I come so late that you are left to struggle yourself to exhaustion. I step into the middle of it at the appointed moment, sometimes at the very second you think you cannot bear it any longer, so that you will etch into your heart that it is I who uphold you. Not luck, not other people, not your own strength. What I entrust to you is not just a few comforting words to ease your sadness. I have placed within your heart a treasure of experience, the days you fell and stood up again, the times you thought all was lost and yet were restored, the cracks in your soul that I have touched and slowly healed. None of this is for you to hide away, but to become a stream of water refreshing other parched hearts. You are not merely someone who survived the storm, you are a witness of grace. That is why I say you have been given a portion in this story, not only to receive but also to give, not only to listen but also to speak, not only to be lifted up but also to lift others. Do you know how many souls are now standing where you once stood? How many are curled up in the corner of a room, staring at the ceiling and wondering if they matter to anyone at all? How many go to church, attend gatherings, play spiritual videos, and yet deep inside carry a smoldering doubt? All of that is surely for someone else, not for me. You yourself have been there. You have sighed those very sighs. And I did not leave you in that dark place. I stepped in. I lifted you out of those heavy thoughts, little by little. So now that you have tasted something of my support, do you want to become an answer to those silent cries for help? I am not asking you to become a hero, standing on a grand stage, speaking impressive words. I only ask you to honestly tell your story with humility and sincerity. The message I have placed in your hands is not a polished speech, but your true story, soaked with tears, marked by the times you collapsed, the moments you wanted to give up, and above all, the small yet grace-filled moments when I pulled you back up. When you are willing to open your heart and share, you are telling the world, if the Lord could do this for me, He can do the same, or even more, for you. That is how you extend my arm to reach those whose names I remember, though you have never met them. Every time you share a word of encouragement, a scripture, an experience of faith, a brief prayer for someone, do not think you are losing something. The water in a spring does not run dry because it flows out. It only becomes stagnant when it is held back. A seed does not bear fruit while it lies still in your hand. It bursts forth with life when it is sown into the earth and accepts being broken and decaying. So it is with the grace I have placed in you if you bury it under the fear of being judged or misunderstood. You are the one who loses. But when you dare to speak, to reach out, to actively comfort someone as I have comforted you, you are not left with less. On the contrary, you yourself will be filled all the more. I know there are still voices of doubt within you. Who am I to speak? My life is not good enough, not holy enough, not disciplined enough. How dare I touch anything concerning someone else's spiritual life, my child? If I waited for a perfect person before using them, no one on this earth would ever be sent. I choose to work through fragile vessels that are willing to be shaped by me. I do not need you to appear strong. I need you to be real. Your honesty about your shortcomings becomes the very doorway that encourages others to come to me, because they realize I do not come only to the put-together ones, but to those who are confused, messy, and full of contradictions. You simply need to let me cleanse your motives. Keep your heart soft and willing to learn, for the source of power has always been clear. It comes from me. I also understand the fear of being misunderstood, mocked, or labeled as showing off or hypocritical. I have seen the looks you once avoided, the bitter comments you have read, the phrases that haunt you. Just live your own life and stop pretending. But my child, those voices are not mine. My voice does not extinguish a longing heart or pour cold water on the first steps of a child trying to stand up. If you let the fear of people's opinions bind you, you will live like someone who keeps a treasure in their house while the door is locked. The curtains are drawn, and the lights are off. You may feel safe, but it is the safety of a dark, airless room. Yet when you dare to open the door, light will flood in, even if it comes with wind, noise, and jostling. I stand on your side when you choose to live honestly with the calling I have placed in your heart. Do you realize that every step you dare to take in obedience does not only change your personal story, but also affects an entire circle of people around you? It may be a younger sibling quietly watching how you face challenges. It may be a colleague observing whether the faith you speak of truly upholds you. It may be a family member who is weary of empty religion, secretly waiting to see if there is a faith that truly touches real life. When you live as someone entrusted by the Father, not perfect but genuine, not showy but not hiding, you are showing them a different picture of me, not distant, not cold, but near and patient. I want you to imagine this: if just one person dares to rise, dares to say, "I agree with what the Father has spoken," and dares to take the first steps as a child of mine, an entire line of history behind that person can be changed. The generations before, though full of wounds, are no longer meaningless. They become the backdrop against which the story of my favor is made clearer. The generations after you, though you have not yet seen their faces, will also taste the fruit of the decisions you make today. For every time you sign with faith and with concrete actions, you are placing a spiritual mark upon your lineage. From this point on, we choose to trust the Father. And then, as you walk in this new posture, not merely someone who holds out their hands to receive, but a child aware of carrying a portion of a spiritual inheritance, you will realize that the words I speak of when heaven has signed are no longer a distant concept. They become the heartbeat in each decision, the reason you rise after each fall, the strength that keeps you from quitting midway. When you are willing to share the message I have given you, even with just one person standing in front of you, you are partnering with me in a work far greater than you imagine. So today, I invite you to do something very specific. Do not just nod inwardly and then let everything pass by. Ask me, Father, where can I begin? Who is the first person I need to support, to send a message to pray for? Then do it. Even if it is a very small act, an encouraging text, a phone call to check in, a moment of courage to publicly share what I have done for you, a time when you dare to kneel and pray with someone in despair. All of these, when done in faith, are never insignificant in my eyes. It is in these seemingly small things that you continue to sign the covenant between you and me. I will not receive only for myself. I accept becoming a conduit through which blessing can be spread. And as you keep living this way, receiving and then giving, being lifted up and then lifting others, being comforted and then comforting, being healed and then becoming a sign of healing, you will one day find that you no longer ask, "When will blessing come to me?" Because your very life has become living evidence that the blessing is already at work. When heaven has signed, I have already spoken yes over your life. Now I am waiting for you to say yes as well through the way you live, speak, love, and dare to share. Then you will no longer be merely a listener of the message, but one who lives in the message, carries the message, and lets that message continue to flow to thirsty hearts you have never even known. And when you begin to open your mouth and speak what I have inscribed in your heart, when you dare to tell another person what you have heard, seen, and experienced in me, in that very moment you are reaching more deeply into your own spiritual inheritance. Each time you share, it is not just an ordinary conversation, it is an act of confirmation. I truly believe what the Father has spoken over my life. It is not by chance that you understand these truths, nor is it accidental that your heart trembles when you hear about blessing, about faith, about living as an heir. It is all because I have taken the initiative to draw near, to open your eyes, to patiently teach you through a long journey. Some stretches you remember, others you have forgotten, but I have forgotten none of them. I have signed the covenant over your life with my love and my goodwill. I have set heavenly movements in motion to prepare the way for you. I have allowed you to see signs, answers, and turning points which, if you look back, you will recognize that none of them were random. Now, when you lift up your voice, when you boldly share with another heart, what you speak is not mere information, but evidence that this covenant has begun to live and breathe within you. Do you realize that every time you tell a weary person that they have not been abandoned, you are also reminding yourself that you are not an orphan in the faith? When you encourage someone who wants to give up that the Lord is still at work, you are also rekindling within yourself the flame of hope that the storms of life have tried to extinguish. Every time you use your own experience to comfort someone else, saying, "The Father is still listening. The Father still sees. The Father is still making a way," the cord that connects you to your inheritance is drawn tighter, because blessing is not an object to be locked away in a cupboard, but a stream of living water that is only truly complete when it flows from you to others. When you let the truth pass through your lips, through your heart, through the way you love and lift up your brothers and sisters, in that very moment you are living as a steward of an inheritance, no longer as someone who only comes to ask for a portion for themselves. I did not speak to you only to stop there. I poured out my heart to you. I touched you. I drew back the curtain so you could see deeper layers of meaning, so that you would not keep it only for yourself, but become a bridge for those who are thirsty and do not yet know how to name their thirst. I signed the covenant of blessing over your life, not only so that you would be comforted, but so you would become one who carries comfort to other souls. I have been willing to stir the heights of heaven, to dispatch angels, to arrange people and timing so that you could step out of your old position and into the place of a child, of one entrusted, of a witness to the truth. I initiated all of this before you ever knew you could use your life for more than just getting by. Now, the rest no longer lies with me, but with your decision. Will you choose to believe fully and hold fast to this all the way to the end of the journey, or not? Do not think that holding fast is a passing surge of emotion that will soon fade. Holding fast is, each day, in very ordinary situations, choosing again to take your stand on my word. When circumstances have not yet changed, you still choose to speak according to truth, rather than repeating the despairing voice of the world. When you do not yet see a door opening, you still choose to prepare as someone waiting to have their name called. When you are tired, you remain faithful with the small steps I have given you, instead of throwing everything aside and saying, "I give up." Holding tight is not gritting your teeth to appear strong. It is continuing to cling to me, even when your feelings sink and your heart wants to step back. Every moment you still keep my word in your heart. Still remind yourself that the Father has promised, has signed, and does not go back on his word. That truth sinks deeper roots within you and gradually becomes the natural reflex of your soul. With each day that passes, if you choose to let this truth keep growing, it will slowly transform the way you think, the way you feel, the way you see yourself and your life. It will no longer be just a lesson you have memorized, but will become your spiritual breath. In the past, when you faced difficulties, you reacted with fear, doubt, and complaint. But gradually you will find that you know how to pause, breathe deeply, and ask, "Father, what are you teaching me through this? What have you already signed over my life that this circumstance cannot touch?" At that point you will see that you are no longer so easily swept away by negative words, no longer drowned by waves of information, bad news, and anxiety as before. The truth about your identity as an heir, about the covenant I have signed over your life, about the fact that you are not merely waiting but have already been given, will become your anchor in every season. You are part of something that surpasses all the limits of time. You are not living merely for a few brief decades on this earth and then that is all. In my eyes, you are joined into a story that was written before the world was created and that will continue to resound for eternity. When you agree to step into it, when you live as an heir and not as a passerby, your very life becomes a living line of text in the narrative of the kingdom of heaven. You are not only one who hears stories about grace, you are the evidence of grace. You do not only recall the miracles I have done for someone else, you yourself are the proof that I still act, still change, still rebuild what seemed ruined. Every time you tell your story, every time you honestly share about your journey from fear to trust, from insecurity to standing firm in your identity as my child, you are declaring to the world that my word does not fall to the ground in vain. Do not underestimate the value of a child who knows to whom they belong. In a world full of noise, there are many voices that deny me, words dripping with sarcasm and doubt, and more than a few hearts that have grown cold, frozen by hurt and disillusionment. In the midst of that, the sight of a child who still bears scars, who is still walking through trials, yet stubbornly clings to the promise, still chooses to behave as one who is loved, still chooses to forgive, still chooses to walk uprightly, that is itself a miracle. You do not need to be perfect to bear witness to me. You only need to be honest about your journey and let me shine through what you already have. Even the parts that seem weak can become the very places where I display my strength. Today, I want you to understand that you no longer have to define yourself by old labels: failure, forgotten, unworthy, always behind everyone else. Those labels do not come from me. I did not write those words over your life. I call you by another name, my son, my daughter, the one I have chosen, the one I trust to be entrusted with my work. And when I say that you are a witness to my word, it means that everything I speak will have a place to be fulfilled in you. Not so you can boast about yourself, but so that you may become a mirror reflecting the goodness of your Father in heaven. You are not a copy of anyone. In you there is a unique weaving of wounds, blessings, experiences, and events I have allowed, forming a very particular voice that I will use to reach those whom others cannot reach. You will find that when you live as someone who has already received the promise, you no longer stand in the posture of counting each day and each month to see what the Lord has done for you. Instead, you begin to ask, how can this truth flow through me today? To whom can I reveal the Father today? What small stretch can I walk forward in my calling? Your question is no longer, when will I receive, but becomes, how will I steward what I have received? That shift in your thinking will bring about a great change in your attitude and your actions. You will complain less, compare less, envy less. You will begin to cherish what you already have, to recognize my hand in small things, to give thanks for steps forward even when they are very small. And you will also learn to rejoice when you see others step into blessing, because you understand that the inheritance I have prepared for my children never runs out. I want you to remember that every moment you choose to trust me instead of trusting your fear, you push yourself further out of the shadow of one who is merely waiting and step closer to the image of one who is entrusted. Those who only wait are passive, easily discouraged, easily disappointed. Those who are entrusted are awake, attentive, listening, ready. You begin to live with the awareness that no action of yours is meaningless if it is done in faith. A word of encouragement you send someone, a comforting message, a hug, a prayer whispered in secret, a decision to tell the truth instead of lying because it would be easier. A moment when you accept a little loss to keep your conscience clear. All of these carry weight before me. These things gathered day by day, are the very way you keep signing your name to your covenant. You also need to know that the journey of living as an heir will not always have the wind at your back, but you will find that you are no longer alone. My presence with you is not just a theory. In the moments when you almost want to let go, when you feel you are speaking about hope to others while your own heart is sinking, remember that I do not stand at a distance and judge. I draw near and remind you that I, myself, am the source of all perseverance, all steadfastness, all hope that does not disappoint. I do not ask you to generate strength out of yourself. I invite you to return and receive fresh strength from me, so that you can go on living as someone who has been called by name, not an anonymous number in the crowd. My child, today is a new milestone. From the moment you decide not to keep placing yourself in the position of waiting to see what God will do for me, but shift to the position of, I want to cooperate with the Father in what He is doing. From that moment, your life enters a new chapter. You begin to live with the consciousness that the promise already bears your name. The blessing has already been signed. The inheritance has already been appointed. Your task is no longer to stand outside looking in, but to step in, take hold, hold fast, and share. You will no longer say, I hope that someday, but will gradually learn to say, today I take one more step into what the Father has spoken. That certainty is not arrogance. It is the fruit of a heart that knows it is loved, redeemed, and chosen. And then, when you look back, you will notice something very profound. I have never let my word fall to the ground without bearing fruit. The result may not look like you once imagined. The path may not be as you once pictured it. But every word I promise, every covenant I sign, carries its own life and will find a place to be fulfilled. You are one of those places. You are living proof that I keep my promises, that I can change thought patterns, mend hearts, and lift a person from self-contempt into standing upright as a child. Today, when you choose to live no longer as someone who waits in vague uncertainty, but as one who has truly received the promise, bearing your very name, you are showing the world a very clear picture, a child, still with very human weaknesses, yet learning day by day to walk in the blessing that has been signed in heaven. And that is what delights me, my child, for you to truly walk as one who inherits your Father's portion. You need to understand more deeply what I call faith. Many people in this world also speak of hope, of positive thinking, of always staying optimistic. But those things, though they may look similar, are still not the same as the faith I am teaching you. Positive thinking only tries to repaint your circumstances, while your faith puts its focus on me, the one who does not change, no matter how circumstances shift. An optimistic mindset only tries to look at the bright side of things. But faith clings to my word, even when everything before your eyes is still unclear. Positive thinking helps you be less pessimistic. But faith is the decision of your heart that says, I choose to stand on what the Father has spoken. Even when my feelings, my logic, or my past experiences are saying the opposite. Faith does not stop at the sentence, I believe in God. And then afterward, you go on living as if you had never received anything. Faith is when you let your whole life answer that you believe what I have said is real. Every word you speak, every choice you make, every way you respond to trials declares, I treat my Father's word as reality, not just a beautiful theory. Faith is not a spiritual slogan you repeat to feel less anxious. Faith is when you align the whole rhythm of your life with the promise I have placed over you, as if it had already come to pass. You manage your time differently. You treat yourself differently. You look at the future differently, not because everything around you has changed, but because deep inside you believe that heaven's decision has already been issued. In the spiritual realm, Every time you choose to trust me instead of trusting your fear, you are adding another bold stroke to the covenant between you and me. When your mouth speaks words of trust, that is the opening line. But when your feet walk in what you have just declared, when your hands act on it, that is when your signature becomes clear. You say you believe I will take care of your life. But true faith is revealed when you dare to leave old compromises, dare to let go of safe paths that grieve my heart, to choose the path I lead you on, even when it seems risky by human standards. You say you believe I am the healer, but the signature of faith is written when, in the midst of pain, you still give thanks, still wait on me, still choose not to release words of complaint. It is precisely that unity between your words, your actions, and your inner posture that makes your faith no longer a vague idea, but a living seal. There are times when your eyes see nothing but delay, slowness, and silence. You pray, you wait, but before you, there is no sign that what you hope for is drawing nearer. It is in such seasons that genuine faith is refined. Faith is not waiting until everything becomes clear before you rejoice. Faith is knowing that, even though you do not yet hold it in your hands, my decision has already gone forth, and you can rejoice now because you believe that I do not break my word. Faith is when you offer thanks, not after you have received, but right in the emptiness, because you believe your Father never toys with the words He speaks. When that certainty settles in your heart, you will find yourself less hurried, less afraid, less prone to comparison, less envious, because you know that your portion has already been decided in heaven. When I tell you that faith is a signature, I want you to understand that faith has real weight in the spiritual realm. It is not a good luck phrase you whisper to yourself, but your response to a gracious verdict that has been issued from your Father's throne. I have stamped it. I have approved it. I have ordained blessing for your life, yet I do not force you to receive it. I honor you enough to wait for your willing signature. A heart that fully trusts me is like you placing your pen beneath that document and saying, I agree with what the Father has decided for me. And once that agreement is in place, no wall, no chain, no accusation can continue to stand between you and what I have ordained, because your trust is activating the power of what I have already finished. Many times you look at yourself and think, I am small, weak, full of flaws. How could I ever be worthy of the great things the Father has promised? You compare yourself with this person and that person. You see yourself as inferior. You see yourself as insignificant. And you conclude, surely that is only for those who are more spiritual, more gifted, more deserving. I know all of those quiet conversations inside your heart, but I say to you, in my eyes, faith is not measured by your talent, your status, your achievements, or your past. It is not measured by how many good deeds you have done to make up for your mistakes. Faith is measured by how fully you dare to lean on me instead of leaning on yourself. A child holds their father's hand, not because the child is strong, but because they trust that the Father's hand is steady. In the same way, the strength of faith does not lie in the one who holds on, but in the one who is being held. All it takes is a simple heart that knows I am not enough, but my Father is enough, and that faith, in my eyes, is worth more than a mountain of reasoning or an ocean of knowledge. I do not despise you for your past, for the times you have fallen, for the seasons when you took the wrong path. I only ask today, will you dare to place the weight of your life back on me if you will entrust it to me? I count that as a valid signature. You do not need countless new proofs to believe what I have already spoken. I know you long to see signs, to hear a clear voice, to have powerful experiences to soothe your heart. But there will come a time when you must decide. Will you live based on temporary emotional confirmations? Or will you anchor yourself in your Father's word, no matter how your emotions rise and fall? Heaven has already announced its verdict. You are loved, forgiven, chosen, and called into a purposeful plan. That verdict does not change just because today you feel worse than yesterday. When you say, "I believe," and let that sentence shape the way you live, your faith becomes the seal that verifies what heaven has declared. I am not asking you to close your eyes and ignore reality. I am not teaching you to deny pain, to overlook the cost, or to pretend there are no difficulties. Faith is not an escape from truth, but the adding of what I have spoken into that truth. You can say, "Yes, I am weak, but in this weakness, my Father's power can be revealed." You can admit, "Yes, I am lacking, but my Father is my source." You do not need to pretend you are fine when you are not. You only need to believe that. In the midst of not being fine, I am still the one holding all things together. It is that posture that makes faith genuine. Not a shiny layer of paint on the surface, but a living strength from within. Every time you decide to believe in a hard situation, every time you choose forgiveness instead of holding on to bitterness, every time you dare to take one more step even when you cannot see the whole road, that is when the signature of your faith is pressed more deeply on the page of the story I am writing. Those choices may not earn applause. They may not be recognized by anyone, but in heaven they are not anonymous. The angels see. I see. And the whole spiritual realm has to acknowledge this one has not only heard, but has agreed. Then the streams of blessing long prepared will begin to find a clearer path to flow into your life. So do not wait until you become perfect before you dare to believe for great things. It is precisely your believing while you are still imperfect that touches my heart the most. I did not wait for you to become a flawless version of yourself before signing the covenant. I signed it when you were still struggling. And now I am waiting for your answering signature. Let every thought, every word, every decision of yours slowly but surely lean toward me. Day by day, your faith will mature, your signature will grow clearer, and the doors to what I have planned for you will open wider than you can imagine. My beloved child, if today you are standing at a crossroads, with one path that feels easier but goes against the call within, and another path that is harder yet carries a deep peace, I encourage you, let faith choose for you. Do not choose merely because you fear losing face, fear failure, or fear being misunderstood, and do not choose merely because something promises quick, visible gain. Ask instead, which path draws me closer to my Father, and truer to my calling? And when the answer rises in your heart, let your faith sign below it. You may tremble, you may pay a price, you may walk against the current of popular opinion, but you will not be alone on that journey. I go with you, and I take responsibility for the road that your faith has agreed to. At the end of every step of obedience, you will meet me, and you will realize that not a single stroke of your signature of faith was meaningless. Remember, what gives a signature its value is not how pretty the handwriting is, but the identity of the one who signs. You may sign with a trembling hand. The lines may not be straight or orderly. But what matters is this: the one putting down the pen is you, the child I love, and the one approving above is me, the faithful one who never goes back on his word. When those two signatures meet, one in heaven and one on earth, what I have ordained for you will gradually unfold. In the way, the timing, and the rhythm that are best for your soul. That is why I always invite you to believe, not to lay on you another burden, but to open the way for what I have already prepared to enter your life in fullness. My child, What you are hearing right now is not an extra add-on to a day already crowded with information, not just a piece of content to fill an emotional gap so you feel less lonely. This is a very clear call from heaven, a signal I am sending straight into your spirit to remind you that you are not overlooked. You are not lost in the crowd. You are within my sight, in the beat of my heart, and in the plan I have long cherished for your life. Many times you have told yourself, well, probably no one really understands me, and then quickly wiped away the tears you did not want anyone to see. But every tear has been noted by me. They do not fall in vain. Each one tells me what you are enduring, what you long for but have not dared to name. If you knew how tenderly I have held those seemingly small moments, you would no longer think that you are hurting alone. There are nights when you lie staring at the ceiling, your heart full of questions. You do not dare to speak aloud. Is God really listening to me? Do the things I whisper to him just vanish into the air, my child? Not a single word you speak to me is diluted into nothingness. Every sigh, every plea, every sentence you only manage to say halfway because of your tears rises like a quiet fragrance before me. You may forget some of the words you uttered in desperation, but I do not forget. You may think you have not prayed enough times or said the right phrases, but I do not measure you by a formula. I look at the trembling heart behind those words, and it is that very heart that touches me. Today I come, not to rebuke you for having been weak, but to reassure you that none of your weakness is useless, and no tragedy of yours is unnecessary in my eyes. The things you think are dead ends, I use to open new paths. The things you take to be failures, I use to give depth to your soul. Not one season of drought in your life is a meaningless blank. I am weaving all of them together, connecting them so they become a story far more beautiful than the one you drew for yourself. I want you to know this: there is no pain at which I merely stand and watch, and there is no joy of yours in which I do not smile with you. In the spiritual realm, a blessing has already been prepared, so carefully that it carries your very name on it. Impossible to confuse with anyone else. It is not a mass-produced template handed out in bulk, but a private covenant, signed with my goodwill toward you. It is sealed by the authority of my throne, which means no power can erase it or seize it at will. You do not need to struggle or compete with anyone, nor measure who has more and who has less, because the portion prepared for you is unique, never duplicated, never sent to the wrong address. That blessing is not just a pretty idea for you to hang in your mind for comfort, nor a few slogans that sound nice to the ear but are hollow inside. It is a spiritual reality, more solid than the things your eyes see every day. What you hold in your hands today can be lost, changed, worn out, but what I have signed for you in eternity cannot. When I speak a word, that word does not return to me empty. When I promise something, I do not say it just to sound kind and then forget. The portion of blessing for you is kept in a place where time, circumstances, the betrayal of others, and even your own recurring weakness cannot steal it. In that treasure house, I have already placed things you never dared to imagine you could touch. I have prepared the resources needed for your journey: strength for when you think you can no longer stand, wisdom for when you are lost among too many choices, guidance for when you do not know whether to turn left or right. I have also arranged the right relationships with the right people at the right time, in the right season, to open for you doors that you could never open by knocking alone. The people you are about to meet, the handshakes, the seemingly casual words that are nevertheless exactly what you need to hear, all of these can be part of that blessing slowly being revealed. And it does not stop there. Within the deposit I have set aside for you are also opportunities your mind right now cannot even imagine. It may be a new direction, a new calling, a new sphere of service, a new environment in which to live. These things are not just so that your life can be a little better, but so that you can live more truly in line with the purpose I have placed in you. Along with that, I am keeping for you ideas that will change the course of your steps, a thought for your work, a different way of seeing yourself, a new picture of your future, a way out of the cycles you are so tired of. And because I know your journey needs not only vision but also concrete steps, I have prepared provision to uphold you. Provision is not only money, but everything you need, so you do not collapse along the way, relationships that support you, words of encouragement that come at the right moment, arms ready to lift you up, small doors that are just enough for you to know that I am still at work. I have also set aside for you a priceless gift. The world cannot sell peace that guards your heart and mind. It is not peace because everything on the outside is calm, but peace because you know you are being held in my hand, no matter how the storms may rise. Within that blessing there are also what you call miracles, moments that cannot be explained in ordinary ways, turnarounds that seemed impossible but happen in a very gentle, quiet, yet profoundly deep way. Sometimes it is a sickness healed, sometimes a relationship restored, sometimes a door you thought was closed forever suddenly opens. And sometimes the miracle is not in changed circumstances but in you yourself. Your heart is healed. Old wounds no longer control you. You dare to forgive the person whose very name once made you ache. These things, though not loud, are evidence that the blessing I signed for you is at work. All of this is not scattered randomly in luck or chance. It is wrapped in a spiritual gift, sealed by me, kept and watched over. It is ready not in a vague sense, but complete and whole, simply waiting to be opened at the right moment. You often think the right time is when everything outside is favorable, when every door is open, when you feel strongest. But in my eyes, the right time is when your heart begins to soften, when your ears are willing to listen, when your eyes are willing to look again, and when your heart is willing to respond. And I want you to know something very important. That moment does not lie in some distant future, not hanging over some hazy day you must anxiously wait for. That moment begins as soon as you are willing to stop in the midst of all the noise and listen to my voice. It begins when you stop asking, when will the Lord act, and start asking, where do I need to open my heart today to cooperate with what you are doing? When the question inside you changes, you will realize the season has changed, even if the landscape around you seems to stay the same. So, today, I am not saying to you, wait a few more years. I am saying, listen carefully right now, not just listening to get it over with, not just enough to say you have heard, but listening as if you truly believe this could be the answer to all those months and years of quiet questions. Let each word touch the places you still hide, still avoid, still fear to face. Let me shine light on the dark corners of your thoughts about yourself, about me, about your future, because in the very moment you are willing to open your heart, the door into the deposit I have kept for you also begins to open. You may say, but I don't feel ready. I understand. I have never waited for you to become perfect before you step forward. I only wait for you to be honest with yourself and with me. The readiness I look for is not the absence of fear, but the courage to move forward even while you are still afraid, not having everything in place, but daring to begin with what is already in your hand. I come to remind you that my part is already prepared. Your part is to learn how to trust, how to open your heart, how to respond. And the very moment you say, I want to believe, I want to take a step, even though I am still trembling, the spiritual timing is activated. From this moment on, every thought you nurture, every word you speak, every small action you choose can become a yes or a no to my invitation. I do not force you. I do not threaten you. But I also do not treat your decisions lightly. You are more important than you think. Your choices carry more weight than you imagine. For I have placed in your life not only blessings for you alone, but blessings that will flow out to those you touch. When you agree to step into the portion I have for you, you are also, without realizing it, opening a way for others to encounter my love through you. So, my beloved, do not treat the words you are hearing as a beautiful passage for the soul, and then close it with no trace left behind. See this as a personal letter I am sending to you at just the right time, in just the right season. Let your heart slow down. Be honest with me about your fears, your doubts, the times you have been disappointed. Tell me if you find it hard to believe. I am not angry when you speak truthfully. I am only saddened when you pretend to be strong and then collapse alone. I am here, in this very moment, right beside you. I see. I listen. I remember. The blessing written with your name on it is ready. It is no longer in the category of "we will decide later." The question is no longer, do I want to give this to you, but will you allow yourself to be loved enough to receive it? If today, amid so many other voices, you allow mine to speak deeply into your heart, that is the first step in which the key of your faith slips into the lock and turns gently. And when the lock turns, the door will not remain closed as before. My child, everything I have been saying to you, from the signature of heaven, to the prepared blessing, to the posture of an heir, will remain only words if there is never a moment when you truly stretch out your hand and take hold. Faith is not a beautiful idea, nor a brief feeling that passes with each video or sermon. Faith is when you say to yourself, I will not only listen anymore, I will respond. And every time you choose to respond, even with a very small act in the visible world, in the spiritual dimension, it resounds clearly, I agree. Today I am inviting you to take such a step that is quiet, but far more meaningful than you think. What is happening in your spirit? I see more clearly than anyone. There have already been stirrings, hardened places being touched, corners of your heart that once seemed shut, suddenly opening a little. I do not want these movements to fade away unused. I want you to seal this moment with something concrete, tangible, visible, so that from now on you yourself will remember, that was when I chose to stand with what the Father spoke. In this world, you've grown accustomed to what seem like ordinary actions: pressing a button, typing a line, sharing something online. I want to use these very familiar gestures as spiritual symbols of the response within your heart. You may think, what could be spiritual about liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment? But look deeper. These are ways you use your own hands, your own account, your own digital space to say, I am not ashamed of what I believe. I will no longer hide my faith in a secret corner. I want more people to hear what the Father is speaking to me today. Outwardly, it's just a touch on a screen, but to me, it's a sign that you are beginning to step out of silent belief, allowing your faith to have a voice, a face, a mark in everyday life. I do not need likes or subscriptions to be glorified. I am already complete, but I choose to use these small platforms as channels through which my word can flow into many hearts. And I also choose to honor your faith by connecting your simple, earthly actions with real impact in the spiritual realm. When you choose to follow, to share, or simply to leave a short testimony of what you've experienced, you are saying to me, I want to be part of the story you are writing through this channel, through this message. You are no longer just a viewer, you are a participant. And once you take your place as a participant, you will experience me working with you and through you in ways you never have before. Imagine this: somewhere out there, someone weary and lost, standing at the edge of despair just as you once were, might come across a piece of content. They may not even know how to pray or what to call me, but the message they encounter may appear before their eyes because of a few simple clicks made by others before them, those who allowed the algorithm to record. This message deserves to be shared. You may not realize it, but your one small click might become the link that draws a wandering soul closer to the truth they need. I see all these connections, even when your eyes cannot, and I rejoice when your faith steps beyond the walls of private life and begins to reach those you've never met. I also want you to understand this: not every online action carries spiritual weight, but when your heart has been touched by me when you're here, not by chance, but by my leading, then, at that very moment, your small actions begin to take on new meaning. They are no longer mindless habits, but deliberate choices. I stand with the light. I choose to nurture what is good. I choose to send words of life a little farther. I cherish these things because they show your faith is not asleep. You must also hear me clearly. I will never shame those who dare to put their trust in me. Faith does not mean you will never face challenges, collisions, or unanswered questions. Faith means that, through all these, you still hold one thread. I know my Father holds my hand. When you take one public step, even the smallest sign within a crowd, to say, I believe in what my Father is speaking, something miraculous happens. The shame that the enemy planted in your heart about your faith begins to dissolve. You no longer feel embarrassed to speak of me. You no longer feel out of place, calling yourself my child, among others. Public faith gradually breaks the chains of spiritual timidity that once bound you. Today, I'm not just calling you to believe quietly within. I'm encouraging you to mark this moment with a clear choice. Don't delay. Don't say, maybe later. Every time you postpone obedience, you give fear a little more power over your life. But every time you say, I'll do it now, your faith gains another step forward. I am not asking you to do something grand or beyond your ability. I only ask you to begin with what you can do right now to affirm that you value what I am saying, that you see the spiritual worth of this message, and that you want it to go further, not stop with you. You may think, such small actions don't matter, but remember, I once used a boy's simple meal to feed thousands. I have always used little things to do great wonders. Day by day, I use seemingly ordinary steps to open new paths in my children's lives. I do not look for greatness, I look for readiness. When your heart is open, even the smallest thing you do becomes a seed, and any seed placed in my hand is never meaningless. From this day on, I want you to see every act of obedience, whether in daily life or online, as a stroke of ink in your spiritual signature, a word of encouragement, a moment of testimony, a time you stand up for what is right, a click to share so that a friend might hear. My word, all are strokes you add to the covenant between you and me. Each stroke declares, I am not just a receiver, I am a bearer. I am not just an observer, I am a participant. And those who choose to participate are the ones who see my movement most clearly. If right now there's a small struggle in your heart, half wanting to move, half still hesitant, know that I see that battle. I don't condemn you for it, but I don't want you frozen in hesitation either. For delay, over time, dulls the spirit, making your heart slowly unresponsive to my voice. So when you are still moved, still aware that I am speaking to you, that is the best time to decide. Not for the algorithm, not for the person behind the screen, but for your own spiritual future. I know there were moments in your life when you almost obeyed, almost changed, almost did something for me, but stopped because of fear of what others might think. Today, I give you another chance not to almost, but to truly act. You can't change the past, but you can choose how to respond now. If you rise up in your heart, if you let your yes take shape in even a small action, you break a portion of the power that delay has held over your life. That breaking, I will continue with you, turning today's small steps into greater ones in the days to come. Do not think that I treat your faith like a transaction. You do this, then I will give you that. No, I do not trade with you. I give to you by grace, but I need a place for that grace to flow. Faith is the door you open to receive what I've already prepared. When you do nothing, it's not that I withdraw my hand, it's that you've kept the door shut. When you act, even in the smallest way, you begin to open that door. I will not force my way in, but I will step through the very space you allow. That is why I urge you to do something, not just feel something. See this moment as a milestone, the day you don't just hear that faith is a signature, but actually take the pen and sign through your actions. From now on, whenever you look back, you'll remember that was the moment I stopped hiding my faith in secret. That was when I began to let my faith speak, move, and engage. And soon, you will find doors once thought locked beginning to open, not because your click held magic, but because the obedient heart behind that click reached me. Before this world was formed, I had already thought of you. I had already written you into my grand story. And today, out of countless things you could have scrolled past, you stopped here, reading these words. That is no coincidence. I don't want this encounter to be just another moment of emotion. I want it to be a turning point, however small, in your journey. I have already signed my part. Now I gently but clearly invite you, sign yours, right now, through a concrete action, through a response that goes beyond thought. I am waiting not to judge, but to gather every small step you take and weave them into a new path, where you no longer live as one standing outside, but as one who fully steps into all I have prepared for you since the beginning. Now, I invite you to quiet your heart and lift to me your most honest prayer from the deepest place within you. Almighty God, who sees through my heart more clearly than I understand myself, today I come before you with a soul still bearing scars, with walls I've built out of fear of being hurt again. I confess that at times I chose to close off, to stop hoping, to protect myself by expecting nothing good, but in doing so, I shut the very path of blessing you longed to pour into my life. Lord, touch those walls, those layers of defense built from painful memories, from others' words, from moments I felt abandoned. Help me to open, little by little, to believe that when I lower my guard, you will not leave me exposed, but will cover me with your love and protection. Give me courage to step out of my hardened comfort zone, to let my heart become tender again to your voice, to embrace light instead of clinging to familiar shadows. Let me say to you sincerely, I want to believe again. I want to open again. I invite you into the places I once shut off. And please, turn this small prayer into the beginning of a new journey of healing, where I no longer live behind walls of anxiety, but within the embrace of your peace. Loving Heavenly Father, there have been many times when I allowed doubt to take the place that belonged to faith. I have prayed while secretly keeping a worst-case plan, so that disappointment might hurt less, and in doing so, the words I believe never reached deep into my heart. Today I ask forgiveness for the times I doubted your goodness, for when I secretly thought you had forgotten me, that your promises were for others, not for me, that blessings were too far for a life so small and flawed as mine. Please grant me a renewed faith, not an emotion that flares and fades, but a steadiness born of knowing who you are. Help me trust you more than I trust circumstances, history, or the negative voices around me. Teach me to speak life, so that my lips no longer spread complaint, despair, or self-belittling, but declare your truth over my life. Transform the words I repeat each day into affirmations of faith, not reinforcements of fear. And when I am weak, remind me that I can say, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, so that in honesty, my faith may grow. Beloved Lord Jesus, who humbled yourself and came for me, thank you that on the cross, you signed the covenant of my salvation and future with your own blood. Yet I see that too often I've only stood afar, looking at that covenant without daring to sign my part through faith and obedience. Forgive me for moments when I stopped at mere emotion, for times I promised in prayer yet forgot in daily life. Forgive me for proclaiming that you are Lord of my life, while still letting fear, comfort, and habit guide my choices. Today, give me a new spirit, one that moves from hearing and feeling to doing and becoming. Teach me to make real changes in how I spend my time, in the relationships I maintain, in the small but genuine steps that align with what you've placed in my heart. Let my life in words, in choices, in how I face challenges, become a clear signature that I agree with your plan. And though that signature may still tremble, strengthen it daily until it grows bold and firm in your eyes. Almighty and gracious God, I bow in gratitude for before I knew you, before I knew how to pray, before I realized I needed guidance, you already saw me, thought of me, and wrote my name into your loving plan. Thank you that the blessings in my life are not random moments of chance, but promises signed, sealed, and prepared long before, waiting for the right time and a willing heart to be revealed. Thank you for not treating me according to my weakness, shallowness, or inconsistency, but according to your faithful nature, for never withdrawing what you have signed because I was late or stumbled, but patiently waiting for me to return and agree again with you. I thank you that every breath I still have, every chance to hear your word, every awakening from spiritual numbness is proof that your covenant still stands, and that you have never abandoned the work you began in me. Good Father, I thank you that even when my life seemed tangled and chaotic, you were quietly rearranging each connection, each door, each circumstance around me. I thank you for those who left my life in tears. For now I understand that sometimes it wasn't loss, but loving, pruning, so I could step into a lighter, truer season. Thank you for the new people you've brought, those who inspire, guide, and open doors I never imagined. Thank you for meetings that seemed random, but became milestones in my faith journey. I thank you even for the times you said not yet or no to my prayers. For now, I see that behind those answers were protection, preparation, and perfect timing. Receive my heartfelt gratitude, for you reign even when I don't understand. I offer this prayer in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so, together, we can build a strong community of faith.